This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 288. Moana 2 and the live-action Moana, a tale of two Moanas.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the #1 place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hey there, Animation Addicts. I'm Morgan Stradling.
And I am Chelsea Robson.
And we are back. Happy New Year. Happy 2024, Chelsea.
Happy February.
Happy February. Whoops. Whoops. January came and went, the longest January of all time, yet we couldn't get an episode out. But we had to drop everything when we heard this news. So let's jump right into it. Moana 2. It's a thing, and it's coming later this year.
Oh, and here's the thing. There are so many sides of this that I'm like, there's some good things, and I'm going to hold tight to those good things. And then there are so many really bad things. So I'm like, yes. Oh, no.
And we are going to talk about everything in between, the good, the bad, the ugly, and our thoughts on this. And, you know, this came out as, let's just start from the very beginning. Why did this happen? What was the impetus that led to this announcement? So Disney had its Q1 2024 earnings call. They don't go on a calendar year, they go on a fiscal year. So their Q1 goes from October through December. They count that as Q1, even though traditionally that's Q4. So the quarter wraps up. They have usually a month or so to get everything in order to prepare for the earnings call. And that's when they release all of their documents. They talk to the investors. They show how they did. Well, Disney had a terrible quarter. Lots of bad things. They're hemorrhaging subscribers on Disney Plus. They've lost over, I believe it's $10 to $11 billion since the beginning of that. They're just dumping money. Yes, they could have built California Adventure 2 times over, right?
Oh,
for how much this thing.
Bad.
Yes, just think of a theme park, and that's how much they have lost just on this streaming service. So you know how we feel about Disney Plus, and they just keep trying to make this the little engine that could. Well, things were bad, and so just to kind of mask that, they dropped this Moana 2 announcement that, hey, by the way, we're getting a feature-length film, Moana 2, and it's coming this November. Now, that's pretty interesting because you'll notice, at least I noticed, after Wish, they had an untitled film, you know, for 2024. And the new way Disney, you know, they'll announce, hey, we're doing Zootopia 2, we're doing Frozen 3, Toy Story 5, right? But then they really have been careful about slotting those into places. They just kind of leave it untitled film. But I noticed that untitled November 2024 film kind of was dropped from the slate. And I thought, oh, wow, Wish was so bad that they're taking a step back, which is good, and maybe just recalibrating everything. And lo and behold, they were doing that behind the scenes, and they were just rushing. And it seems what they did is they took this Moana TV series, which was originally supposed to be a TV series for Disney Plus, and they're rejiggering it behind the scenes and transforming it into a feature-length film, Moana 2. I have so many thoughts. I will continue to talk, but I'm going to let you talk.
Oh gosh. See, I just have, well, you mentioned the fact that they've also changed the studio that this is going to be manned at, right?
I did not mention that, but
that is the other part.
The other shoe that has dropped with this one is that they didn't even announce this in the press release or the announcement for this, that, hey, by the way, it's not our traditional flagship studio in Burbank that has the big, Sorcerer's Mickey hat. No, they are not going to be the ones doing the animation on this. It's a new studio in Vancouver that was set up within the past few years and has slowly grown to about 400 employees. I imagine that this studio was intended, as it probably initially was, for these TV Disney Plus series. Yes. Just like we saw back in the day with Disney Toon Studios.
That's exactly
and
what I was
Circle
thinking.
7, which, never really became a thing, but they kind of like these secondary studios for other projects. And Disney television has been a thing for a while, Tangled the series and obviously all these other shows. And they always had studios. Typically, they weren't Disney studios. They were just, hey, we do the creative in-house at Disney and we send it away to a studio in Canada and then they do the animation. But this is like a Disney-owned offshoot studio, if you will. And this came at the shock, from what reports are saying, to the animators at Burbank. They had kind of an emergency meeting announcing this to them, and everyone was really just flabbergasted that they weren't even included.
I think they knew that it existed, but I think that they thought it was like 20 people or something. And then they're also, by the way, there's 400 people working at this studio.
The studio.
Yeah. So I think that they knew that this was a studio and that it could probably go into the Disney Plus side. So like, definitely,
it's not a threat to Walt Disney feature animation.
Not a threat to us guys. It's not a threat. But then today they had an emergency meeting telling everybody, oh, by the way, there's there's a lot of people there. And yeah, like and they're not, from what I've heard, they're also non-union. They've got all of these, so many things.
The new studio.
The new studio. Yes. So the new studio has a lot of things that is much more beneficial to the studio or to the corporation than it is to the employees who are at Burbank. So like, on the one hand, we
have so much to talk about each one of these individual pieces.
Yes.
Like, where do we want to
yes.
Where do we go?
So much. Okay. I'll just hold on to like the little bit of good. I'll start with that. Okay. The good part that I see from this is that, going back to one of our previous episodes where we talked about Wish, and basically it was right after Wish, we talked about that one. And then we also talked about the current state of Disney animation, episode 286. And neither Morgan or I had a lot of hope for the current state based on the people working there and like who's the ones in charge. And so my question is Jennifer Lee also head of this new studio? It doesn't seem like it is.
But she's still over Walt Disney Animation Studios. I mean, this is under her wing. And this movie is
okay.
And she's a producer, from I believe what we read.
This is just another location okay.
It's still a Walt Disney studio under it's going to be in the Disney canon. And she's going to be a producer along with probably other producers that we haven't seen or not announced yet. And it's just not being done by, I don't want to say Disney. I don't want to say Disney proper, because this is part of Disney. You know, there's always been,
it's just not Burbank.
There was the France studio that did Goofy Movie.
The Florida studio.
There was the Florida studio when Tootie was getting so hot and heavy that it was just like, we got to do two. And that was an interesting time. So, so
I guess my hope was that.
Let's talk about the good.
Okay, so
and then we'll jump, and then I'll take the baton from there.
because that's how we do it. A good cop, bad cop thing. The good things that I saw from this is going back to our conversation in the current state of Disney animation is by the end, you and I were basically agreeing that in order to kind of root out the rot, you have to basically start brand new. And so I'm hoping that in this case, they're not going to have the same kind of political situations happening. So like, for example, this is just one of the things that I was like, oh my gosh.
This is important to talk about. And for those who don't know, I mean, I've been talking with people in my circle, just who are Disney fans, just normal people, and they have no idea what's going on, obviously, because they're not clued into the ins and outs of the industry.
They're not obsessive like we are.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, the fact is they were having it was the amount of political correctness happened to where if you were an animator, you were unable or not allowed to animate a character that wasn't both your sex and ethnicity.
And the idea was, animators always have the mirror, especially 2D, you would see them have a mirror next to them. And they would be looking in the mirror and making these faces and then drawing it out, because they were becoming the character, especially in 2D and obviously 3D CGI. But now it's just this wokeness, if you will, has become so infused with it that it's like, well, you don't look like the character you're animating, so therefore you cannot touch this. And apparently you do not
have the lived experience of all of these people. And it's, oh gosh.
This came out with Film Threat. They did a series called The D-Files, really after they released their initial review of Wish, which was one of the initial ones out there on YouTube. All these animators and insider people started contacting him like, yes, this is my experience. This is what I'm seeing. And so they're doing this ongoing series called The D-Files, which is breaking down what has happened to Walt Disney Animation Studios over the past 5-6, plus years. And so this is it. We'll include link in the show notes to both of them. By the time this episode comes out, Article 3 will be out or coming out. And, they talk about for example, Raya the Last Dragon, that they, under the direction of Jennifer Lee, they really wanted to make sure that they had this 50-50 ratio of women animators, which typically this is not a women-driven profession. And I don't see the fact that, yes, in real life, there are women and men at 50-50 for the most part. I don't feel like in jobs that needs to correlate. There's a variety of reasons for so, but then really to force this onto a studio saying, no, we must have this and we need to have it now, created a big problem. And so first it was, okay, we need to have women animators on this 50-50. And then they need to be, I believe, women animators from Southeast Asia. We want to have a high dominance of those. And then they couldn't, they were really of Southeast Asian descent, I should say. And then, then obviously they capped out on who they were able to hire for that. And they had to kind of like branch out. But you can just see this ideology where you're so focused on the granular aspects of what people look like and their background versus their skills and their experience, which your background can play a part in. But if you're ignoring all of the experience and just doing it in, living in the trenches and working it over and over, like all of the animators had to do for a long time, the inexperience is there. And apparently the veteran animators were really struggling, especially on Wish, when they brought so many new people who just typically Disney was where it was at. Disney was the place where you cut your chops somewhere else. You worked at a few different studios that were great studios, but they weren't Disney, the illustrious Disney and Pixar. And eventually when your portfolio was good enough and, you had all the right, the reel and everything under your belt, then you could apply to Disney and join, the creme de la creme, if you will. And that over the past few years has not happened. They are just hiring people left and right. They're not coming from the accredited, prestigious art schools, which, some things to be said about, we could talk about that another day, but there's art school. Those art schools were really feeder schools into the Disney system. And just the experience from what we're hearing in the D-Files and other people, they just weren't there. And so this is a long kind of rambling way of saying, the Burbank studio within 5 years has just, and I'm sure this was leading up to it before, but it was just completely transformed from this old guard of veteran animators, Disney legends, people who'd been working their craft for 20, 30 years to just people who barely got out of our animation school or art school or not even any, you know what I mean? And I'm not surprised that Wish turned out the way that it did. And so all this leading up to here we have Moana 2. And instead of saying, hey, Burbank, hey, like, let's take the reins. Here's Moana 2. I get the feeling that Disney is like, this is such a disaster over here that we need to put you kind of in timeout. We need to let you simmer down and we need to figure out what's going on here. There are other projects, obviously, that are in development, have been announced. But we need something and we can trust this group over here, even though they're newer.
I don't even think that they can trust them. I just think, well, at least they're not this. Like, at least we don't have this problem there.
Yeah, the B team. we can handle the B team. You know,
it's just, oh my gosh, there's just so much that has happened over there that it blows my mind how things have changed since you and I started podcasting. As I'm looking at our rotoscopers.com/every episode ever, I went back and I looked. Today, we are recording this on February 9th, 2024. And guess what day our very first episode of the Animation Addicts podcast came out? February 9th, 2012. So look at us, 12 years.
Happy 12 years.
Happy 12 years, Morgan.
Wow, it's our anniversary.
It is.
I'm so glad we have a date. A date.
We haven't gotten together in a while, so it's like, oh, look at us.
Let's plan something.
Yeah. So, imaginary party.
Lowe's knows what makes SpringFest savings even better are member-only doorbuster deals. Right now, rewards members can save $40 on an Allen & Roth Chesler Gold faucet. Was $99, now $59. Plus, save $110 on a Cobalt 40-volt battery trimmer and blower combo kit. Was $279, now $169. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 3/24 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
So I'm looking at it in the 12 years that you and I have been doing this. It has been like I kind of look back at us and we were so young and we were so like hopeful and you go
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah, and
some of our episodes we reviewed some of the worst movies out there and we were like, it's great, you know, here's the bright side. We're not even going to acknowledge the negative because why? Who needs that negativity in their life? And now we are like
post-pandemic, it's just like
we're like the grandmas who are like, we expect more of you. We are not sugarcoating this.
Yes.
No, this is the school of hard knocks and you're going to make it work. You know, like we love you, Disney. And I think that's why this whole thing is so frustrating. But we need to go back to Moana.
Because there's so much love there that we're like, come on, we still do have hope, actually. And so that's why it's like, okay, if we're going into this new studio, hopefully that at least this part that has been kind of rotting out the Burbank location is not there. And because I'll just be honest, I am zero fan of unions. Like I've just always been a person that just was like, no, they
almost destroyed Walt Disney the first time around. And here we are.
Yeah. And I grew up, my parents were entrepreneurs. I've always been an entrepreneur and I really revere entrepreneurs. And I think unions are people who just don't have the guts to go out and do it themselves. So they try to like, don't go without me.
Ultimately, the union becomes part for the sake of the union.
Right.
The union never wants to go away, so the union's going to do everything in its power to make sure that the union sticks around.
Right. And so there's like we're telling you this so that, you know, if you are completely against how we like our mind, our frame of mind, then you'll know exactly why. Like there's going to be a lot of people who listen to this who are like, I disagree wholeheartedly. And then the other people who are just never going to listen to us again. And then there's other who's like, oh, I'll hear them out. And then there's others.
There's
the
people who come in my DMs all the time who say, oh my gosh, thank you for saying what we've been thinking, you know?
Exactly.
So it's a variety of, we got quite a variety, and that's fine. This discourse is important and it's helpful to help.
Yeah.
Ultimately we want Disney to be better.
Well, the thing is, I don't think this discourse happens very often at all. And so I think it's just important that somebody has this conversation somewhere so that other people can understand, and the diversity of thought is wonderful. So anyway,
here's the thing that I have with Moana 2, though, is the rushed announcement of this, that we went from it being a Disney Plus television series to we are now converting it and turning it into, you know, the movie because they needed a movie. And another problem is animation legends, John Musker, Ron Clements, who are the original animation, and they are like a directing duo. You see a lot of directing duos now, and I think a lot of times it's because they are not trusting the director, or they have other reasons why they need to add a second director on. And so you kind of get demoted to co-director, but these two were always in tandem working together. They worked on Aladdin, they worked on Hercules, believe they worked on Great Mouse Detective, but they just are animation legends in their own right. And obviously they've done Moana, they were so great at. And we met them one time in passing.
Yeah, that's right.
Outside the Disneyland Hotel after Destination D. And they're not back. So again, I feel like if you were going to do Moana 2 right, and you were going to not just rush to make a date, which this feels like they are rushing to make a date. They don't care about making a quality film to make a true, you know, a Toy Story 2 to the Toy Story, you know, or a Toy Story 3. Like
even Toy Story 3, yeah. Toy Story 4, we shall not talk about.
Yeah, we don't talk about those. But I feel like if you really this is one of their most popular princesses, especially nowadays. It's one of their top films and shows on Disney Plus is Moana. Of all the things, people aren't going back and watching Disney Plus or Beauty and the Beast. You don't see Beauty and the Beast on the top 10. It's Moana that's there. She's one of their most popular princesses. So for me, it's concerning because you think you would do this right. They're not bringing them back. They're also not bringing back Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I remember being I liked Hamilton. I think it's really overhyped, but he is the reason Moana is so good, is because the music is iconic. I could listen to the Moana soundtrack over and over and over again. And his songs are wonderful. You're Welcome is just fantastic. Shiny is hilarious. And just the cultural, you know, numbers that, away, you know, those just feel authentic and really are very Moana. And they're not coming back, or he's not coming back. Instead, they have this other duo called Bear and Barlow. Those are the last names, the two women. They became known for doing the Bridgerton unofficial musical, which after Bridgerton, there was this TikTok thing where they wrote this musical and these two girls did it. And I think they were nominated for a Grammy, a variety of things. And like they're pop singers. But that's my problem is, okay, we can go back to the director first in a moment, but we saw with Wish what happened when let's bring pop people in and just do, you know, you can do a Disney animated film, and Disney isn't pop. It is Broadway at its core. Yeah. And they're bringing these people that, okay, yes, maybe the Bridgerton unofficial musical is more Broadway, but it's not Lin-Manuel Miranda. And for me, the problem, this very much reminds me of Olaf's Frozen Adventure. If you don't know the history of Olaf's Frozen Adventure, it was a ABC TV special. You know, it's about 25 minutes long. It was supposed to play on ABC. Something happened, and we never really got the official on what happened there, but they scrapped it and they put it in front of Coco. And people did not appreciate that 25-minute Frozen short was playing in front of Coco.
People were upset.
it was very Frozen. I mean, they had Frozen Fever right before this, which was a traditional 6-minute short, but this was a full mini movie. And they brought in new singers or new songwriters for the first time, and they tried to copy the Lopez's style. And it's kind of there, but it's not. I think I was way too harsh on it the first time we did the review of it, but it's not the same. It's cute and whatever, but it's not the same. And so I think the music could go two different ways. If they're trying to recreate Lin-Manuel Miranda's style and the Moana that he has done, I think they will probably fail because he's a kind of a once in a lifetime guy, right? There's just a few of these incredible songwriters out there.
With his style too. Like
with his style. He's like a Howard Ashman, but different, plus 30 years beyond, right?
Yeah.
Now, if they try to make Moana 2's music different and still Moana, but not trying to copy what we did in the first one and just make it somewhat more unique, then I think it could work, but I'm not sure. I don't know. And the stakes are so high for this. I don't know if they were brought on while this was still in production as a Disney Plus musical number. So they were just writing, songs for a TV series and the stakes were low and people wouldn't really care because it was the, just the show. Like, who cares? Like, there are some good songs. Harmony, harmony. There are a few, bops that come out of these TV series that stand the test of time. But typically they're like throwaway stuff that you just don't pay attention to. So yeah, that's my speculation that they were brought in for the show. And now it's like, wow, this has really amped up the stakes for them.
Yeah. So what this reminds me of is Atlantis, Milo's Return.
Yeah.
And it is literally the same story as far as like production wise, like how this came to be. So basically Milo's Return was going to be 3 episodes. They were just going to do 3 episodes and put it on Disney, like, I don't know. They're shooting for adding it
was just going to be 3 episodes, or these were the 3 pilot sort of episodes.
I think this was the 3
created.
Pilots.
Because I've never heard of a 3 episode TV series. Yeah.
So this was the pilot. Let's just go with that. It was the pilot for a show that wasn't going to work out, and then they just said, "Yeah, we're just going to put this as DVD." Here we go.
This was in the era of all the DVDs,
all of
right?
Those, yes. So this was, I would say, if we were playing Catch and Fire right now and I pulled out which movie would you rather see, Cinderella 2 or Atlantis, Milo's Return? These are basically along the same, this is the same thing. Like, you're watching the same thing, just different faces. And
for sure.
Really bad quality as far as compared to the original, the theatrical. And it's just it's very part 1, part 2, part 3. And it's not like a full movie. You can tell it's 3 episodes that were just like smashed together. And so I just see this as that. And I am not filled with hope when I think about this. However, like, I look at, okay, most of the movies now aren't being actually made until you have 6 months left until the due date anyway. And so I don't know, like, that's what Wish was. Wish wasn't like nailed down until six months through. Frozen 2 also not nailed down until 6 months through. You had all of these movies that are all within the last decade that are much lower quality than
but those all ultimately went to DVD. I worry that they're going to try to smash 3 episodes into some sort of cohesive movie. I think they're going to try to creatively. The animation hasn't started. Thank goodness. We know that Wish was essentially animated the last 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think they could take. I like where you're going with this. I think they could probably take the storyline, ultimately where the end was going, and just turn it into a movie and kind of cut out all the fluff filler episodes. From what we heard is that this was going to be your typical, go on Maui and Moana go on an adventure. They get a ragtag crew of characters.
I have a new group of friends.
Yes, I have a new group of friends, and they join along the way. This is very much, the Frozen or the Tangled TV series that did this. They had a group of friends that joined along, and totally. So, and you can see in this concept art, which will include link to the concept art that was shared, and it's Moana and Maui on a boat, and there's this big tiger shark that they, that's kind of illuminated in the, what we saw in the last one. So is this someone's spirit, or what's the situation here? And then there's an old guy on the boat. And of course there's Hey, the chicken, and the pig. Looks like a younger guy. And then kind of there's like a teenager, a young adult man, and an old man. So no girls, but it kind of reminds me of the initial version of Moana before. This was like way before they even started, when they had the casting calls. And initially it seemed Moana was supposed to have this like she was the youngest of like 7 brothers. Yeah. And all the brothers got to go out in the water and seafair with the dad. But I don't imagine these are brothers. They're just kind of, people they find on an island along the way, and then they hop off to another island, then another island. So, yeah, but I'm not excited. I'm definitely not excited, because I don't feel like this was done in good faith. I don't feel like this was done out of like a true, like, yes, this isn't the Brad Bird. I waited, 15 or 13 years to make The Incredibles 2 because I was waiting for a good idea to happen. This was, no, we need to make another movie.
Happened to be the exact same idea.
It was terrible. Yeah. And yet it did so well. It's one of the top, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's one of the top 3 animated films now, if not number 1. Oh, yeah. Gosh. It's crazy. People will see what they want to see. And that's the thing, is they know that. Yeah. The Incredibles 2 was not great. And Moana, everybody loves Moana. And so they know that, like, whatever we put out there, whatever like bait we stick in the ocean, the fishes are just going to eat it up. Yeah. And I tried calling this out, on my Instagram. I was posting, talking with people and going back and forth, and people were actually shocked. They were like, "Oh, I was excited, but this, knowing the backstory, this makes me not excited." I'm like, sorry to rain on your parade, but like, you got to know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, there's just so many things that I'm like, I wish this weren't a thing. Yeah. But I mean, here's the thing. You could go ahead and like do an open call for stories and then find somebody, the story that you like, and I just don't understand. Why aren't we going to books? Because they keep going back to, I need to remind the audience of something that was successful one time, as I heard on thatparkplace.com thing today. I was like, that is so true. Everything that they are saying is like, let's just do something that reminds the people of something that we were good at once.
Disney is creatively bankrupt right now. I mean, they have their slate is just all these sequels, and they've just gone all in on sequel. And it's terrible. It's not exciting as a consumer. My stance on the live action remakes is that I just don't see them. I will only see them if kind of forced to for a review, and I'm going to a press screening. But I will not sit down and watch them. I will not pay for them. There's many that I haven't seen because I'm kind of just boycotting them. I'm trying to say, no, I don't want to participate. So this is kind of leads me into the next discussion I want to talk about. Semi-adjacent to this is there's simultaneously the Moana live action
remake what is up with this?
That is happening. It's like they know that Moana is all they have based on the Disney Plus data. So we have 2 different avenues that are happening. We have the live action and we have the sequel, formerly Disney Plus TV series. And this, we never talked about it, but this was so, I don't think people were talking. No, I don't feel like many people brought this up. And when this all went down, no one made like a stink about it except for me, like 2 people in my real life. And finally, like I recently, again, on my stories I shared, was going off again. So there's this live action Moana, and fine, Disney, you're going to do that. But what was kind of cool is they were bringing The Rock back to be Maui. And he's a big guy. I mean, former WWE wrestler. And like, he's not stocky and like Maui, but he can play a live action Maui perfectly fine. And he's the voice. He's got the hair, the bod, a demigod. Right. And then we were going to have, and I can never say her name right, Auli Carvalho, which, butchered the name, forgive me. She was going to play Moana, and it was known that the 2 of them together were going to do this. And that was kind of cool because the voice actors were going to come, and they were going to be the ones that were going to be doing the live action characters. But then the crazies on Twitter, the people, the eggs on Twitter who have no followers, but just get really upset because they are these social justice warriors who everything must, they have, that's what they live for in their life, if you will. And there was this big stink that how Auli she was half Hawaiian.
She wasn't Hawaiian.
She wasn't Polynesian or Hawaiian enough to play Moana. And so next we get this video of her, you know, and Disney they are so cowardly in the 2020 era. They are so cowardly. They cave to this pressure of like 3 people online talking about it. They think that these few people, these few Twitter accounts and people just making a fuss represent the whole population, and they don't. And so what they did is they basically shoved her away and said, we're gonna be casting someone who truly represents this character. And to shut her up, they give her an executive producer role. Now, she did an announcement on Instagram basically saying what this was and how excited she was that, you know, she's passing the baton. And if you watch this video, which we'll include a link of it in the show notes, it looks like a hostage video. She has this piece of paper she's reading from. There's no
wrote
soul.
this down so that I could tell you exactly what I wanted to say.
Disney Legal made me say this, and it's so
Here's the
pathetic
statement.
It's so sad, and it really is real heart-wrenching when you're watching this video and you're knowing that like this is the character that defines her. It will be the character that defines her for her whole life.
Yeah.
And to imagine to play this yet again, how amazing as a live action princess. Yeah. Have that taken away because the woke mob said, no, you're not good enough. Like, have we turned into the Death Eaters from Harry Potter where it's purebloods only? Because that is how far this craziness has gone. This representation that everything needs to perfectly represent life. Like if you're not an animator who is this X, Y, or Z, then you cannot animate person who is X, Y, or Z. It is just bonkers, the world that we live in. And I am so really sad and upset for her.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. The Rock still has it. The Rock is still playing Maui.
And he is not the same. He's like less amount, or at least equal amount as
he's supposedly half Samoan and half black, but he's also the bigger name.
Yeah.
He's the star power.
Nobody would see it if it was not him. Like
people know him. Yes.
He's the voice. Like his voice is iconic enough that you're like, no, that's not the Rock.
But her voice is iconic as Moana, you know.
And I would have loved
even though
you
probably couldn't pick her off a lineup on the street.
No,
you could. I
mean, Disney fans would, but
if you could close your eyes, you could. Yeah. And I just thought it was just this really cool. Like that was the one where I'm like, why are they doing this? But hey, I like the twist that they did there. That's pretty cool. That's not happening anymore. And so this actually has been pushed back, I believe, because now there's just too much Moana happening. I'm not sure. I still don't think they've actually gone into production of it. They announced this last summer and they made it seem like she's like, we're in production, but I think they meant pre-production, and they just like shot her in Hawaii somewhere, like on a beach, to make it seem like, hey, look at me, I'm on set, Disney Channel, back in the days. Have you seen that girl on Instagram who pretends to be Hilary Duff? Hey, it's Hilary Duff.
I love the internet.
Oh, she's so great. Oh, if I can muster up not the courage, but I can muster up one of her videos, I'll include a link in the show notes as well.
Cool. That's also one of the hard things, is like when you see a random thing go by, you're like, I will never see this again.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap, where was that? Yeah, that was a really terrible video, and it was a really terrible thing, because I would have been excited to see that. I would have been because this is one of those things where it's like you go back and it's like, oh man, I wish they would be able to do this in real life and be able to see the real actors doing it. Because this was something that I would have eaten up like nobody's business. But now, like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And so this was supposed to come out, the live action, June 27th, 2025. So basically a year and a half from now. And as a result of Moana 2 coming out this year, supposedly, I mean, who knows what will even happen, right?
Right.
This is now pushed, and they haven't announced.
Since when is an earnings call the normal way
how
of
many things
announcing?
have been announced on an earnings call, and then it just like flutters into the wind, and we never see it again. Right. They just do it for the earnings call half the time to just, like, oh, we got to hide the bad news, and we got to get people excited, and it works.
Don't look over here. Look over here. Look over here.
Do not look at the man behind the curtain.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's going to be pushed back, but and obviously because now the Rock and Aoi, I will practice that 100 times over after this video, but they initially were contracted for a Disney Plus TV series. And so they basically have had to go into renegotiations for a film and to contract their voices for, distribute, there's a different contract and pay scale and all of this that you have to do. It's the game has totally changed for them.
Right.
And so they're probably going to have to go back and do all sorts of reshoots and not reshoots, but, go back and film their lines. And it's going to affect the production of Moana live action. So, so the tale of two Moanas, if you will.
Oh my gosh. It's like,
who knew Moana was such a big deal?
I had no idea until you started seeing, well, as far as knowing that it was a good movie, yes, but knowing that it was still this popular until you have to look at the Nielsen's ratings, and every week it's still up there. That and Bluey. That's all they got.
They don't like you knowing that Bluey is number one.
Yeah. Like crap.
So one last thing that I want to cover kind of before we end it is we talked about Ron and John aren't appearing again, and Jennifer Lee's going to be the producer, and we have been extensive on the Jennifer Lee era we don't love.
Yeah.
I think there's time for something else. It hasn't worked. It's not good. There needs to be a full changing of the guard at all levels of the company, starting with Iger, starting with Lee. But okay, whatever. Here's where we are for now. Until this corporate shakeup, investor takeover potentially happens, it's not going to happen. So, going back to the director, it was announced that Malcolm Pierce is going to be the director. And I had heard that he was head of storyboard for Strange World. But when I go on his IMDb, Strange World isn't mentioned anywhere. He actually joined the company as an animator for Tangled. So he's been here quite a while. Yeah. And he previously worked on Open Season 2, Age of the Dinosaurs before then. Again, we're talking about cutting your teeth at these other studios, doing these other things before you kind of can make it to the big gig. Worked on the Prep and Landing stuff, then was an animator for Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Big Hero 6, Moana. He was an animation supervisor, head of animation for Raya the Last Dragon, and just an animator on Wish. Not just, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And so initially when I was concerned, and he's actually kind of, he had an interesting little statement on his thing that he posted finally. He said, "A year and a half ago, we decided to embark on an incredible voyage, setting sail on Vancouver, BC, determined to build a second animation studio that can continue Walt Disney Animation Studios' incredible legacy." So we're getting more of a timeline here. A year and a half ago, he was asked to basically take over and start this new fledgling studio in Vancouver. And he was setting sail, setting voyage. Our first project, ? Moana 2. Now, this is where his editing of history happened. It's now called Moana 2, but the first project was not Moana 2. It was the Moana Disney Plus TV series. And obviously he's not going to
editing history.
He's editing history, right? Like he's trying to present this as like, look at this. Yeah, this was from the very beginning. It's not. We gathered the wonderfully talented Moana leadership team and began assembling the crew. Like, I don't know if that necessarily means Moana leadership team, but there we go. Just in 1 year, our team grew to over 100 strong as we began to bring these beloved characters to life. So work has been happening on this. They went from 0 to 100 within a year. So, that's 6 months. Now we're looking at basically 6 months ago, last summer. They had 100 people. Today, we stand a proud team of 400 plus artists, engineers, and technicians embarking on our first theatrical release. The announcement of Moana 2 hit me harder than expected today. Yeah, probably because you recently got the news within the past month or two that was happening.
Reminding like 3 days ago.
And also reminding me of the journey we've undertaken, and also the deadline. Hello, the crazy deadline they've given you. No wonder it hit you like a brick. Holy cow. Yeah. Reminding me of the journey we've undertaken since setting sail past the reef. I like these. I don't know. I appreciate the little flowery thing. He's an artist. Yeah. I couldn't be more proud of the studio and the extraordinary stories we'll bring to the world. Now, has he directed any, a feature length film before? No, but has he been in the studio pipeline for a while? Yes. So I will give him that because unlike Raya and the Last Dragon, where they got this guy who basically had directed, what was his name? Carlos Lopez Estrada, they pushed out Paul Briggs for this guy for some reason, and unbeknownst, they didn't like him enough. Paul Briggs, anyway, that's for another day.
Yeah.
But sound like Joe Biden going off on a tangent. Anyway, enough about that.
Anyway.
He does it, guys. It's really sad. Anyway, and
Sorry. But I was also looking at that really quick. There's Don Hall on there a bunch of times, and I heard that they cut him out too because he was not quite enough for them. He was the wrong sex and ethnicity in order to lead a project.
Well, yeah,
he was like stuff like that. It's like, what?
This is terrible. It's just terrible. It's like they are going for only the optics and sacrificing the creativity, the experience, just the robustness of the Disney legacy simply for like checking off boxes. And we could hit, we're basically beating a dead horse at this point. But Malcolm Pierce,
but also it's jealousy. It's jealousy because somebody else wants his job. Because he's been doing it a couple times, and they're like, "I don't want you to have that same job again. I need my turn." I mean, that's really what it is.
I will give Malcolm Pierce some. I mean,
I hope he does well.
I hope he does well. I really hope that so. He's like this amazing creative genius and just really talented, and he now has his opportunity because I don't want this to fail. I'm just really nervous for it based on the origination and the situation around it, and. Yeah, so here we go. Moana 2, followed by maybe a year or two later by live action Moana. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's going to be the clock is ticking. People said like, why couldn't they get Lin-Manuel back so quickly? Like, if they're announcing this, why don't they? He probably has other things he's working on. Like he can't just
things. And like, do you know how long that would take? Like he was working on the first Moana for years.
Yeah,
before he was ever famous.
I mean, he does have, if you could say he does already have that baseline knowledge because he went on the trips and he was working with the people and he had these co-writers that he had created these songs with that were just, so he already has that built in. And so he's kind of just has to like blow off the dust and look at his journals and go get back into it. Or maybe there's songs that were unused, you could bring back in. I feel like, but I feel like if they could get him back, they would.
Yeah.
But he's probably doing stuff. He's in new movies now, and he's probably making more Broadway. This is a busy guy where he can't just like, okay, for this like Moana 2 cash grab thing. It
takes so much headspace in order to do a project like that. Like I've just started opening up my archives, going back through some old songs that I'd never released and whatever, and even just like the idea of going back into going back into the folders, the project folders is like, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of headspace. It's a lot of like bringing it all together. So it's like, if I know that I have 4 years to do something, then great, I can pace myself. But it's like, are you kidding me? I've got less than 6 months, because these things have to be done.
Yeah.
Done before you can animate.
Yeah. I wish them the best, and we will be tracking this intently as we go along. So we did have a voicemail, which I'll include here, basically talks about our sentiments about, or should I just include it?
Yeah. Let's talk to people. While you're doing that, we do have somebody went in and did a review on the podcast app. And I was very happy to hear this. It says, for ratings and reviews, this is from Wizard0198765. And this was in every job that must be done. And 5 stars, the Animation Addicts Podcast with hosts, the Rotoscopers, is the only podcast I listen to. And mainly, I know, I was like, whoa.
Impressive.
Is the only podcast I will listen to, and mainly while I am at work. All of the episodes bring an element of fun to the mundane workday. I love all of the commentary, listening to amazing interviews with animators and voice actors, and funny jokes by the hosts, and all of the inside information on animation and Disney. I've been a Disney fan since I was a wee bonny lass, and I enjoy this podcast a lot. If you are an artist, animator, Disney, or Pixar addict, this podcast is a must. Oh, thank you, Wizard0198765.
Woot woot. Love it. All right. Here is this voicemail.
Hi, Rotoscopers. This is Jazzy and A once again with a potential nerdy couch topic. By the time this voicemail was recorded, it was announced yesterday that the Moana Disney Plus series has been converted to a theatrical movie, slated to release later this year. Now, The schedule for Disney Animation has 3 sequels back-to-back, with Moana 2 in 2024, Zootopia 2 in 2025, a third Frozen film for 2026, and a 4th one confirmed at a later date. At this point, I'm led to believe that there's going to be a Disney sequel resurgence after 16 years. Don't get me wrong, while I grew up with those types of films as a kid, I'm sad at how there isn't any more adaptations after Big Hero 6, nor original tales after Wish, though I should have seen it coming. What are your opinions about this new slate? P.S. I listened to the Sequels and Duos episode recently, and my verdict is that any films made by Disney Animation is canon, while the ones from Disney Toon are set in a parallel universe. Thank you, and have a magical day.
Yay, Jazz DNA. Yeah. Oh gosh, she's like naming those. It's like it's a gut. It's a kick to the gut. Every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no. Zootopia was fine. Like I had good things to think about it, but it wasn't like something that I'm all that into.
No.
And Moana, once again, we've exhausted that today.
Yes.
The Frozens, oh my gosh, please
the Frozens. It reminds me of the Barbies.
It is. That's what it feels like. And then like Morgan and I have a whole episode where we're going to go and re-talk about Frozen 2. And that whole episode is just the problem with Elsa. And she's got issues, and I'm not, storytelling problematic, and the fact that they're moving forward with this is it's heartbreaking that they couldn't just let it alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not necessarily excited for this Disney sequel resurgence. It was fine when it was one thing, meaning it was a for direct to DVD, and it kind of stayed there, and that's where it was. But I don't know. Now that these are becoming theatrical, it's just that's the way, it's the thing. Not a fan. So I just feel like when you start going down the sequel territory where that's all you do, it just shows kind of just that you're kind of creatively bankrupt because you have no other ideas and you don't trust yourself to even explore those. Or you've just been so corrupted by the almighty dollar that's you're not willing to take those risks to get to that next great, franchise, if you will. Frozen started as just a little original film. So yeah, I'm not excited, but we will see. So I think we have lots to talk about, and hopefully Chelsea and I are going to be doing more episodes. We're going to try to be this more consistently. We're going to try to find a schedule and get in a groove. I really want to do the Super Mario movie next. So let's get that going. We can do that one. And then if you guys have nerdy couch discussions and things, news that comes up, we want to try to cover more of these little news stories as they happen. And we're going to be releasing kind of these episodes. We're recording them on video and trying to put those out on YouTube. So that will be fun. So just stay tuned. We have big plans. But of course, our software wasn't working the way we wanted it to today. So, it's just a normal episode.
I have one more note from somebody. This is from Sam. And Sam says, I just wanted to say that I agree with your latest podcast. Keep saying the things that people are afraid to say because of censorship. It made my day 100%. Thanks,
nice.
Sam.
You know what? I feel like these have been kind of thoughts that some people have had simmering, inside them for a long time. And it felt like over the past few years that you couldn't share it. You couldn't share the way you were feeling. And the past few years also changed that. I think post 2020, it's a different world. People are, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And I'm not going to fear, that's America. I'm not going to fear what other people think about it.
We do this because we want to have fun. And Morgan and I, it's our nerd thing.
And because we love Disney at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I mean, the reason we're being so critical about them is because we love them. We love their history. We love everything that they have done. And we want to see more of it. So seeing Disney falter and seeing Disney fall like this and, making risky moves, it's concerning, and we love them. And so we just want the best for you, Disney.
This is hard love. Hard love, honey.
Yes. So we're
the
see.
Old grandmas.
we may be proven wrong, but who knows? So we shall see. We will definitely be reviewing this one in November.
Yes,
and
for sure.
Yes. So stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, I know that Apple iTunes and podcasts have kind of changed the way that they've done things. So just make sure that you are subscribed there or on Spotify or wherever you find podcasts. We will be found. We are still here 12 years later. Your favorite animation addicts talking about their favorite thing, animation and Disney. You know, Disney's in a different place than it was 12 years ago. 12 years ago, we were gearing up for Wreck-It Ralph. We saw the test screening for Wreck-It Ralph, and it's just funny it's wild how much has changed in 12 years. So more to come. And with that, until next time, we are the Rotoscopers. I didn't mean to say that. No,
but you did.
No, I didn't. I know. You know me. I know.
That's why I was like, what?
Where's the lie?
Look at us go. But
where's the lie?
You know when people get really old and they just stop caring?
Yes, that's what we've hit. I know.
That was fun.
Nice.
You've been listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag Animation Addicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.